I'm always thinking of like a million things at once. So when I mentioned earlier that I like to write things down, if I don't write things down, they're just going to be in my head, and I'm going to eventually just do one thing and then forget the other, right? So write everything down that you want in your life.
There is a new American dream. One that doesn't involve working till you're 65 before you start enjoying life. If you're someone looking for ways to regain control over your time and check off that bucket list now, you're in the right place. We share tips from experts on investing, personal finance, and mindset so that you can finally have the freedom to work less and live more. This is the Freedom Investing Podcast with your host, Chris Toribio.
What's going on, everyone? This is Chris Toribio with the Freedom Investing Podcast, and I am so happy you're here to join us for another amazing episode. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome to the show. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with our latest episodes. Moving on to today's guest, we have Ramil Torres. Ramil is a full-time W-2 worker for the city and county of the San Francisco subway system, a full-time business owner of NorCal Hobby Shop, which sells sports cards and collectibles, and is the founder of his real estate investment firm, PurposeDriven Holdings, where he owns 41 units in Phoenix, Arizona as a limited partner. After discovering his eldest son's autism diagnosis, it changed his mindset to work smarter rather than spending loads of time away from home. Ram, welcome to the show. Before we dive into it, give us a quick 2-minute rundown of who you are, your background, and where you are in your journey to achieving time freedom.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Chris, for having me on. I've been waiting to chat with you again. It's been a while, so thank you for having me
Absolutely.
on, and congrats on all your success with the Freedom Investing Podcast.
Thanks, man. Happy to have you on.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm Ramil Torres. Everyone calls me Ram for short. I live here in sunny San Jose, Silicon Valley. I was actually born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I was born to two immigrant parents who came here from the Philippines in the late 60s and gave us a great opportunity to grow up here and go to school. Basically just, went to school here. I got my degree in radio broadcasting, sports radio broadcasting at San Francisco State University. That's what I wanted to do. I love music. I love sports. I could have became a nurse, but it's something that that made good money, but it just wasn't my passion. But I wanted to do something that I loved, so I took a broadcasting and did that for a few years, and it didn't work out. I kind of branched off into different avenues. I worked for the state for about 4 or 5 years, and I kind of wanted to stay in the industry of helping people. Since I had a communications degree, I wanted to kind of get into HR or some kind of program where I can just my strengths were talking to people and helping people out. So I did that, and then I branched off into healthcare. I went into healthcare. I worked in a drug reimbursement program, so I helped patients who couldn't afford certain drugs, and I, verified benefits, talked to the doctor's offices, did that for about almost 7 years, and then I found a great opportunity with the city of San Francisco, working in the subway as a station agent. So if you've ever been to any subway in the U.S., you may see an agent in a booth, and usually you ask them for questions. Like, how do I get to, let's say you're in Chicago and you want to ask, how do I get to the bean? How do I see that? You go and they'll tell you the directions, hey, just hop on this train, then you transfer on this bus. That's what I do. So I did that. And that's where I am right now as far as my W-2 jobs. Also own, like you mentioned, a sports card trading shop. I'm a local dealer here in the Bay Area. And I have my own eBay store and a website. The eBay store has been up for about almost 25 years. I've been doing it since college. I love trading cards, so I've been doing it on and off part-time, just like, for some side income. So that kind of segues into, doing what I love on the side for extra money. And there's also another reason why I kind of ramped it up while I was working full-time. So about 7 years ago, my eldest son, he was diagnosed with autism. And at the time when I was working my full-time job, my wife and I, we both work full-time, and we're away from home, and we have this 3-year-old son and another one on the way. And we thought, how can we make some extra money? And I thought, well, I can work overtime, but that would mean I would be away from home, right? So I would drive Uber. I would work overtime. I did it anyway because, you got to sacrifice, right? And then when we found out he had autism, I said, you know what? I can work from home. So I stayed home and I just ramped up the hobby card business. I would sell cards online. I would do local shows, open up packs online for customers. So yeah, that's how it started.
Wow. So there's a ton to unpack there. And, first and foremost, I didn't realize that you've been in business with the NorCal Hobby Shop for 25 years. That's amazing. And a true testament to like your ability to just stay consistent with what is it you're doing. So very much congratulations to that. That's amazing. And so what I want to break down here is the fact that you initially got your degree in radio broadcasting. And then you ultimately, even though you didn't go down that field, you realized that you still wanted to work with people. You wanted to help people, right? And you found yourself in a position working for the government of San Francisco in their subway system. And on top of that, you also opened up a business to help increase your household income. And so you're managing being a dad, you're managing being a full-time W-2 worker. You said you also had the NorCal Hobby Shop and was also doing Uber. You were doing additional things on the side, picking up overtime, and realizing that, that wasn't really sustainable because it meant spending more time away from home. So in this moment, what did you do to kind of manage your time differently so that way you can take on more responsibilities to ultimately, sacrifice, but it would make so much of a difference long term for your family?
Yeah, it was a lot of things, Chris. So when I started, officially launched NorCal Hobby Shop, the actual website, and said, hey, I'm going to go, full steam ahead. This was 2017. And at that time, Sean, who's my eldest with that's on the spectrum, he was 6. And then our youngest son, Joseph, he just turned 2. So they were both going to school. And the good part was I would work in the afternoon. I worked a swing shift. At the time, I was working from about 11 to 8. So I'd be home by like 9 o'clock. Could take the kids to daycare or to school, while my wife, commuted to her job about 30 miles away. And then while I'm at work, my wife would pick them up. She would pick up Joey from, grandma and grandpa's house, since he wasn't going to school yet. He was only 2. And then grandpa would go pick up Sean from school because he was in, how old was he then? It was like in 2nd grade, like first or 2nd grade. So yeah, so we just had to coordinate everything. Like I had to like bid on a schedule for me. When you're working for the city in our contract, we bid for schedule. So like I was kind of like a little lower on the totem pole still. So when we picked for shifts, I kind of picked a shift that would, work out for my family. So if it meant me being away from home in the middle of the day so that I can take the kids to school and then my wife can pick them up, then yes, then we had to sacrifice and do that. So I did that. And so we did that for a while, for a couple of years, and then the pandemic hit. So the pandemic happened, early 2020, January? And I was still working. I actually picked up a closing shift. So now the kids were at home. They were on their laptops going to school. So now we're like, oh, you know what? Maybe I could work at night. I can be at home with the kids while they're, they have their virtual classrooms. And then my wife was working from home. So now we're all at home together. This is kind of like, a lot of things bad happened during COVID, but at the same time, like good things happened too. And that was all of a sudden like, wow, like we're all in the house together. We're not like when I come home from work, they're not in bed, because when I come home from work, they're in bed or they're waiting for me. Now I'm like, wow, I get to be with my kids at least until I go to work, till I have to go to work, but then I'll still be with them from morning till afternoon. So, that kind of opened my eyes, and I thought, this might work out if I work at night while they're going to school virtually. We don't know how long this is going to happen for. And it happened for like a year. And, we did that. I kind of ramped up the business. I was doing business stuff in the morning and helping kids with school and helping my wife. And then I will go to work and then come home and then do a little bit more business stuff while they're asleep. I would like ship orders, answer questions, whatnot. And then I would go to bed. So yeah, everything kind of happened like, I guess not really by accident, but like just because of the circumstances with what was going on in the world, Chris. So yeah, that kind of started it.
And so just to clarify, so you were working from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. During the day?
Yeah, before the pandemic.
Then initially, yeah. And then once the pandemic happened, you had this opportunity where everybody was at home during the day. You helped the kids with their homework. You spent time with the family. You helped them with their classes. And then you went over to work. You worked the overnight shift. And then you would come home and, still manage in between there to also work on your NorCal Hobby Shop. And so with the NorCal Hobby Shop, is that also something, do you have any employees that help work with you, or is it just strictly you and doing all of the shipping, all of the ordering, all of the marketing? What does that kind of look like?
Yeah. So, NorCal Hobby Shop has technically one employee. That's me. But I do have my wife, and she's very supportive. And yes, she has offered help. And it kind of seems like a lot of stuff goes on when you're running a business. But because I kind of like know where everything is, and my wife's in the office too, and so I have like my little area where I have everything that goes out, and I kind of just do my thing. And but you know what? My sons helped me. My youngest son, Joseph, he would help me pack. And that's because he watches me and he's like, Dad, can I help? I'm like, sure, okay. I don't force him to, but you may see a couple pictures on my social media of him, like maybe like throwing some packing peanuts in the package or something like that. And he likes to do that stuff. So, yeah. So yeah, it's just me, but I don't know when I want to scale up. What I'm doing right now, I'm just doing enough. I'm not trying to like push myself too hard, even though it seems like I'm doing like a million things at once, juggling the family, full-time job, doing this and, studying syndications, multifamily apartment investing. But, it's just, writing things down and having a calendar that's really helping me.
Right, exactly. And that's one thing we didn't even tap into yet is the formation of purpose-driven holdings, right? So, on top of, being a dad, being home with your family and supporting your kids and your wife, you're also working the full-time job, you're running NorCal Hobby Shop, and then purpose-driven holdings started relatively recently. Can you kind of talk to us about how real estate investing came into the picture in the first place? How did that even come about?
Yeah. One day I was watching YouTube, and I was always interested in real estate, just kind of here and there. And what kind of sparked it was my parents, when we were little, they bought a single family home, and we didn't really know much about it because I was like 7 or 8 at the time. And we'd visit this house about 5 miles away from our home. and the house was empty, and needed painting and it needed repairs and basically a rehab. And you guys are all too familiar with that, right? And we would go there, and I would wonder, like, why are we in this house? And we would go there like every other weekend, or whenever my dad wasn't working, and we would help paint. And my dad would be in the backyard, like making sure the fence wasn't falling down onto encroaching our neighbor's backyard. And in due time, this guy would come to our house every month. His name was Sam. And Sam was actually a bus driver for the city of San Francisco. Actually, the company that I work for now for the city and county of San Francisco. So everything kind of comes around full circle. It's kind of weird. But Sam would doorbell. I would answer the door. My sister would answer the door and say, like, oh, hey, Sam. Oh, hey, Mom, Dad, Sam's here. And Sam would come over with a check and would say, hey, Ted, here's a check for this month. I'll see you next month. Thanks, man. And I would always wonder, like, what is this guy doing? He's coming over to our house and he's handing us a check. He's handing Dad a check. And so we've, when I got older, I think they sold the property shortly, thereafter, a couple of years after. And they didn't really ask my parents about it. It was just something that happened every month, like clockwork. Like every third Sunday of the month, Sam would come over and like, oh, Sam's here with the check. Like, I didn't know what that was, right? And as I got older, after I got married, I asked, my mom, and oh yeah, we got that property, and Sam and Eddie and their kids, they rented that house for like a long time. And then I was like, ding. I was like, they're giving you money to live there? And then that's how I kind of wanted to study single family homes. So I took an exam in like for extra credit during the summer while I was still going to school. I think it was my junior year in college. This is a long time ago, like 1999 or something like that. And then I completed it, the basics of California real estate, but I never went through and took the exam to get my license. So that kind of went on the back burner as I completed my last two semesters at SF State. So the investing part kind of went out the window as I concentrated on, trying to earn my degree and, get out into the workforce and hopefully maybe work in radio, like work my dream. So that was on pause for like almost 20 years, right? Because now it's 2020, the pandemic happened. And then all these ideas started conjuring up because, a lot of us were home. I was an essential worker, so I still had to be out in the subway. But then all these ideas started coming up like, well, if mom and dad can, have one property, like I can do that too. I was thinking, how do I do that? So I just started reading. I started listening to podcasts. I found Rod Cleef's podcast actually. And I joined his 2-day course, which went online because the pandemic happened. He couldn't have it in Denver. I think it was in Denver. And then that's how I met your partner. That's how I met April and Julian. And then that kind of started things. I started joining groups, Facebook groups. I got on, became more active on LinkedIn, going to meetups, just educating myself. And then I eventually got a coach. Last year, I got a coach. I invested in a coach because I can only like read so much. I can only like listen to podcasts so much. I'm doing so many things at once, right? Like a chicken with its head cut off, right? So I thought, I needed some structure. So I joined an academy, and that really helped because it kind of cut my time like considerably, like having to like study on my own. Now I have kind of some structure in regards to investing.
We always talk about this concept of leverage, right? If you have X amount of time in the day, or you have X amount of dollars in your account that you can use towards investing or growing your portfolio, there's only so much you can do, as you had mentioned. And at some point you come to realize that you can only do so much and you can't do everything. And so what it was smart that you did was you actually leveraged the time and the expertise of someone else by joining that mastermind. And then suddenly you're subject to a community of people who are like-minded, who are doing the things that you want to do. But also, as you said, it also significantly decreased the amount of time that it took you to learn the concepts of real estate and what it is that you wanted to do. And so moving forward from here, at some point, did you have any sort of active holdings, or did you realize that you wanted to go straight into the larger deals and you invested as a limited partner in that 41 unit?
Yeah, as you know, when it comes to investing in, a larger deal or a syndication, of course, it takes a, pretty big sum of money, right? So it's something my wife and I talked about a lot. And, we wanted to see where we were, at the moment, with our with our retirement and, our upcoming pensions, if we were to keep working until we were eligible for, a pension with the city or with the state. So we just wanted to come up with a game plan. And yeah, so we did want to leverage real estate. And the more that I studied it, it wasn't so much that I wanted to become active in a deal, which is raise money to to buy an apartment with with other people and partners. I more so wanted to experience it first. So what I did was, like you said, I educated myself. I got into groups with like-minded people, learn the business, learn the ins and outs. There's drawbacks to investing. Of course, there's always risk, right? So, there's rewards too. So, there's a lot to think about there when you're dealing with, a big sum of money and you're like, we're going to put all this money into one deal and we're going to be tied into it for at least, whatever the business plan is, whether it's, 3, 5, 7 years, right? You have to think, this money's illiquid. So until, the deal, until they sell, the apartment, or if it's lifetime cash flow, you have to think, okay, my money's going to be tied up in there. So it's a huge decision. So we wanted to do that first. So we found this 41 unit deal in Phoenix, and the team is actually the team that is coaching me. So I built some trust with them. I needed to gain their trust. I've had a relationship with them with one of the general partners for about almost 2 years since the pandemic. So I saw him and his partner go through several cycles, meaning, they found an apartment, they raised the money, and then eventually they sold it. Or I watched, what they did, or they showed us case studies. So I said, okay, they know what they're doing, right? And then the other partners on the deal, I've known from other meetups. So, and I really made sure that, and here's an important thing for listeners, and whenever you're investing is, get to know the people that you're investing with, because it's marriage, right? You're basically, you're stuck together for the next 5 years or so, right? And, your money's there. And you want to make sure, for me, I want to make sure they were good people. And what was more important than, having the track record, knowing what they were doing, and, of course, bottom line, you're getting distributions, right? Money's coming into our account, right? I want to make sure that they're good people, that their values align with me. People are renting these units. Like, how do they treat the people that live there, right? It's a community, right? If they're happy that they're living there and they treat them well, that's a huge thing for me. And I want to know, does the community enjoy living there, or are they miserable? If they love it and they're making improvements to the place and they're making them feel happy, then yes, so that's definitely a plus. I want to know that first. And then track record, like, cool, they know what they're doing, nice. And they've done it before, and that's all. That was it for me, and that's why I made my decision.
That's a really good point. I mean, that's a huge variable for us as well when it comes to figuring out people who may be good potential partners in the future, people we want to work with. And it's right. It's very easy to join a partnership when things are going great and
Right.
everybody is doing well. Um, what really matters is how are these people going to act when things are not going well, and that's
Right.
what it comes down to is really their morals and their values and whether those are in alignment with what yours are as well. That's great. And so rewind real quick in terms of when you decided to invest in 41 units, and you had mentioned something that's really important here is that you are married to this deal for 3 to 5 years. It's a passive investment, right? So, in terms of the things going on in the day to day, it's very similar to an investment in, say, the stock market. But for the sake of our listeners, what additional benefits do you find that drove you to investing as a passive investor into a real estate syndication as opposed to, say, just investing it into the stock market?
Yeah. Yeah. A big one for us was you can have gains, right? Let's say you like, well, this is cool. We're getting a quarterly distribution. We're getting, cash is coming in. And then at the end of the year, we have to file our taxes, right? When I first heard about, um, cost segregation for the listeners, cost segregation, I'm not an expert, but basically, they go through the whole property and they look at the things in these units and they say, hey, you know what? These things depreciate, maybe like the blinds that you see here, maybe these blinds depreciate. And there's 41 units in this apartment building. So that's whatever the cost is. And it's been how many in the past year? Oh, this depreciated by how many dollars, right? Um, or just anything, right? There could be a chance that your gains may be offset by, some of the losses from depreciation. So that's pretty cool. Imagine at the end of the year, you're filing your taxes and you get this document called a K1, right? And it says, hey, you made X amount of dollars. But then on the other side, it says, but then again, you lost X amount of dollars. And then, hold on, I like all this offset or some of it offset. So now you're not paying as many taxes, right? Of course, that's like the perfect scenario, right? But comparing it to the stock market, which we do still invest in, that's another vehicle that, we're not going to talk bad about, the stock market, even there are some advantages to, you know, investing, especially earlier rather than later, right? Compound interest, right? Um, but yeah, just the thought of having, some of your gains offset by, depreciation, that's pretty cool. Like if you gave me $20 and then all of a sudden I had the taxes came in and said, oh, you don't owe anything on this $20 because now, you know, who knows? Just it's a generic example, right?
Right. And you're not actually losing anything. It's just because they're taking the value of the tangible part of the asset, the
Yes.
building, the windows, everything that you had mentioned. And then they're saying, well, look, this is only the lifespan of these components are only so many years. And so because of
Mm-hmm.
that, after this many years, they're going to be worth zero. So you should be entitled to a write-off against those tangible parts of that asset. And you make a good point too, because when you invest in the stock market, yes, it's also a great way to diversify your portfolio, and we also have holdings in the stock market as well. And ultimately, it's good to have just a well-rounded portfolio of both. But when it comes to the stock market, even if you get dividend distributions, depending on your tax bracket, that still gets taxed as ordinary income. You cannot take any
Yep.
paper losses against that dividend income. And then on top of that, we also have the capital gains, right? So let's say you sell the stock for a profit, you're going to get taxed a certain component of capital gains. Versus when you invest in real estate, you're not only getting those quarterly distributions, but at the end, you're going to get your return of that capital you invested, right? As well as the additional gains that they made from selling that asset. And the cool thing is what you can roll it into another deal and further delay the taxes you would have to pay on those capital gains, which is amazing.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, Chris. Exactly. That's what for a while when we found syndications, and like you mentioned, um, when you invest in the stock market, yeah, it's taxed as regular income, right? And when we found out about real estate investing, it almost made us hate the stock market for a little while. And we're like, oh man, I hate the stock market. Like, why don't we have these, um, benefits too? So, this kind of ties into Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Why aren't you the, kind of going off on tangent? Why aren't you a business owner, right? And like, you're on the E side, right? The employee side, and, you want to be on the B side. And we thought, owning real estate is kind of like being on the B side, right? You get those advantages of writing off certain things. And of course, talk to a tax advisor before you do anything. And that's what I would do. And before you make any financial decision, talk to the experts, right? Don't just go into this willy nilly, especially if you're throwing a bunch of cash into this, because it is a pretty penny. And everyone that's listening to this podcast, I know you're working hard and you just want to make sure that, you want to make a well-informed and educated decision.
Absolutely. Yep. Definitely consult with the people who are on your team. It's your attorneys, your accountants, your spouse, and really just
Right.
come up with a good plan in terms of making sure that your financial house is in order. And this is not something that's going to put you off from any other potential goals personally that may be of greater priority at that time. That's great advice.
Right.
All right, folks. So we are coming towards the end of today's show, but before we finish, it is time for the Freedom Five. These are 5 questions that we ask every guest on our show, starting with the most important question. What is your why? What is the underlying motivation behind everything it is that you do?
Well, so my why kind of ties into the name of our company, PurposeDriven Holdings. For, since college, I was kind of lost after finishing college. I kind of, didn't know what to do with my life, even though like, yay, I got my degree. Like my parents are happy. I'm happy. But then after that, everything kind of went like the other way. Like, okay, now I got to find a job, right? So, I did have great jobs, but I didn't have that why. I was going to work, my wife and I, we were married, and I was just kind of chugging along, just to be frank with you, right? Working 9 to 5, coming home, save your money, spend your money, doing a lot of spending actually, which is not anymore, but, but yeah, my wife came when our first son was diagnosed with autism. So that really opened up my eyes. And I thought, I don't know what his future will be, with this diagnosis. I don't know if he's going to be able to, what's he going to be like in the workforce when he's 18, right? Like, will he need more help? And I wanted to make sure that, maybe I can start. This is where we can start. Maybe we can, everyone talks about legacy wealth. I guess it's kind of true, but, we have our foundation, but we also want to make sure that, maybe in the long run, by the time he gets to the age where he has to go out and find a job, and that, he'll have some sort of a cushion, him and his brother. And that's what we're kind of striving for. So we're working full time, and our why for investing and, doing what we do is for them.
I love that. I love that. And as you said, it's not easy, right? And everyone likes to focus on the passive income side. But I think one point to drive home here is, in order to get to the point where you can invest into passive income, you have to have a source of active income. A lot of
Right.
people, talk about, quitting their jobs. A lot of people go ahead and talk about, jumping full time in real estate. But when they do that, oftentimes they're still going into some other active form of income, whether that be a real estate broker, whether that be wholesaling, whether that be flipping houses. All of those require you to still trade your time for money. And so, as long as you have some sort of purpose behind what you're doing, that's going to be the one that really brings you through the difficult times, which I'm sure all of us have encountered at some point or another, and in some degree or another. And so, I love that you have that purpose behind, your son and his diagnosis, and making sure that you set that aside for them. Second question I have here: what book has had the largest influence on your life?
Yeah, so I read this book by Grant Cardone, and Grant is, as you well know, he's well known and he can be controversial, but um, yeah, but what really got me was the 10x rule. Um, as you can see, I juggle a lot of things, so naturally, the 10x rule was kind of, taking action and ramping everything up, whether it's business, your family, or whatnot. That really put my mindset to let's get everything into action, get the ball rolling. And I was already naturally like, a hard worker. I was always used to like working a lot. So when I read Grant's book, he was kind of like kicking me in the butt, like, well, you're working, but like, like, what are you working for? Like, what's your goal? So that book kind of accelerated my, my mindset.
Love it. That's a great book. Third question we have here: what is the most impactful thing, whether it's a piece of technology, a habit, or a person, that has helped in freeing up your time?
I would say my journal. So or I have this planner, and for me, everyone likes to get everything on Google Calendar or whatnot, or wherever their calendar is online or on their phone. But I like to write things down. I'm a write things down person. So if I write things down and I'm looking at it every day, that helps me a lot. So just good old fashioned pen and paper, pencil and paper, that has helped me. Nothing too crazy, to be honest. But I can write it down, and then after that, I can put it in my calendar afterwards. It kind of helps me remember like twice, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. I actually found
Yeah,
this during interesting, like during school too. I found that I was also the type of person that had to write things down, and I feel like the
there you go.
physical act of writing things down had this connection with my brain that allowed me to remember things a bit better than even just using technology. And as you're saying too, now you get a chance to kind of repeat the process both with the technology and without it, so that way you kind of have that going through your mind twice. And I know my wife, she also she every single day in the morning she kind of makes a list of the things that she needs to do, so that way it keeps you on track with like, okay, once you check this off, this is done. You get that little dopamine hit at the end of the day knowing all these things are checked off, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. Just checking it off on your to-do list. And that, yeah, and like you said, a dopamine hit, and also gives you confidence. Like, hey, I'm doing what I need to do. So that
Absolutely.
reminds me of
Yeah, I
that,
mean,
right?
you can have these like huge tasks or huge goals that you want to meet, at the end of the year or even at the end of the quarter. But a lot of those comes down to like these smaller day-to-day tasks that, as long as you continuously complete those, you'll eventually have no choice but hitting those goals at the end of the quarter, end of the year. All right, fourth question we have here: what is the number one piece of advice you would give to anyone looking to achieve more control over their time?
The number one piece of advice is, um, I would say, how people have these vision boards. So I would just take like a regular piece of paper, like an 8 by 10 piece of paper, and just dump out everything that's in your head. Because I'm the type of person that, like, I'm always thinking of like a million things at once. So when I mentioned earlier that I like to write things down, if I don't write things down, they're just gonna be in my head, and I'm gonna eventually just do one thing and then forget the other, right? So write everything down that you want in your life, right? Everything, write your current situation, like what you're doing right now, and then think of things that would help you. And also, a big thing is, um, mirror people that are doing what you want to do, in the future. So let's say it's someone that you admire that, let's say they're investing in apartments and they're really good at it, and you like the way that they work, ask them what has helped them and write that down. I would say that would be my biggest thing is what do they call it? Memory dump or something like that. You write everything down. I
Yeah.
would do that.
So we use a very similar strategy. We call it the brain dump with our team
Brain
and
dump.
with our personal life. Yeah. So
Epic.
we found what that really does is eliminate a lot of overwhelm too, right? Because as you're saying, if you don't write things down, they're all trapped in your head. And before you know it, you're either going to forget about it and then panic once you remember what that was you wanted to do. And it just takes away from your ability to be productive because you're constantly thinking about other distractions and other things. And that's had a huge impact on our productivity because now we're no longer having to think about those things. All we're having to focus on is getting things done because we had previously taken the time to write all of those down and then prioritize it. I love it. All right, Ram, fifth and final question we have here. What is the best way for our listeners to get in contact with you?
Yes, so they can visit our website and learn more about us. It's PurposeDriven Holdings. It's www.PurposeDrivenHoldings.com. Our social media is linked in the website. So somewhere on the bottom, you'll see like an Instagram logo. You'll see a LinkedIn logo and a Facebook logo. And I think there's also, I shouldn't say I think because I know, but there's a link that says contact us and they can, send us a question or just introduce themselves. But yeah, our social media is probably our best way. If you don't have social media, then the contact form would be best.
Love it. Ram, lots of really great information today. I really appreciated how you shared your background in getting into radio broadcasting, changing your careers, getting into working with the San Francisco subway system, also becoming a full-time business owner of NorCal Hobby Shop for the past 25 years, and then finally finding your purpose through your son's autism diagnosis and really getting you and your family positioned to invest passively in real estate. I also love how you talk about you took your parents' background behind seeing them get a monthly check every month and really coming full circle and understanding the value of this, 20 years later. I just want to thank you again for being a fantastic guest on our show, and I really look forward to remaining in touch.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Thank you for having me on, and can't wait till we meet in person, man.
Love it. Make sure to subscribe to our monthly newsletter and schedule an introductory call with our team. We also have a free 7-day course on what passive real estate investing is and how to get started so that you can start your journey towards earning back more time in your life. To all of our amazing listeners here on the Freedom Investing Podcast, my name is Chris Toribio. Till next time.